We're going to start with an activity just to wake you up a little bit after lunch. And this is an activity that I use as a starter to one of our lessons right at the beginning when the children are just starting to learn their instruments. So it's just a pulse activity. I'm just going to tap different parts of the body and I'd like you to do the same as me, please. Okay. You don't have to stand up, it's okay.
Oh, come on, stand up.
All right then, all right. Yes. You might not be able to see. Can't see. Excellent. Stay standing, please. Stay standing, stay standing. Then I would invite a child to the front and ask them to be the leader, which is actually much more difficult than you think because, of course, you have to think ahead, think what's going to be the next activity so that you can change on time. And then I'm going to ask you to copy me again, but this time not at the same time as me, one action after me. So if I start here, you will watch, and when I change, you will start on the first activity. Okay, again, please. And seeing as that's so easy for you, we're going to do once more. And this time you're going to follow two actions after me. Okay, so watch the first two. Woo! Okay, off you go. Okay, hopefully you're awake now. Okay, please sit down. Thank you. I'll just say something else about that. That's okay.
Yeah.
That piece of music that we've just been doing the activity to is usually the first piece that I teach the children to play as well, and they'll just play 4 crotchets and then rest for 4 beats, and we do that plucking on the D string of the violin. And once they've already done all the activities to the same piece of music, it usually comes very easily. Okay.
Right, so wild opportunities. What is wild opportunities? In fact, I'm just going to change very quickly and go back again. Jeg, eller vi, har bestemt, at vi holder den her på engelsk, sådan at Imogen og jeg, vi kan få en snak sammen, og hun kan være med i det. Vi kan alle sammen være med i det. I er jo fantastisk til engelsk, så det skulle ikke være noget problem. Jo. Så I'll go back to English now. So that's why we're doing it all in English, so just so you're aware. Right, so wild opportunities. In 2004, the English government announced that every child should have the opportunity to learn an instrument. So it became part of the National Plan for Music that music services and schools should give every child the opportunity to learn an instrument. In Salford, we've kind of added a little bit to this because we feel, well, that's all well and good. Give every child the opportunity to play an instrument. But really, all children should have the opportunity to learn an instrument. All children should have the opportunity to create music. So it's not just learning to play an instrument, it's also learning to compose, improvise, working away from your instrument. All children should also have the opportunity to experience music firsthand. So it is, get to grips with playing an instrument and actually knuckle down and get the violin in your hands or the trumpet or flute and just play. All children should have the opportunity to develop a musical skill. So musical skills, as we all know, is transferable. So we can use, yes, we're on about mathematics, working alongside music, language skills, social skills, etc., etc., etc. They all work together. So for us, that was really important. Now, part of Wide Opportunities is also that we have to learn to sing. So all children should have the opportunity to get to know their voice. So singing is a really integrated and really important part of Wide Opportunities. Very often we will start a session, a Wide Opportunity session, either by doing some rhythm work or perhaps doing a song that the kids can relate to. We'll come on to that later on. So it's all well and good for us to talk to you about Wide Opportunities. So we thought the best way was to show you what Ofsted, which is Ofsted is the English, correct me if I'm wrong here, government that comes in and assesses, checks out whether the schools do what they're supposed to be doing. And they went into a school, just knock my notes here, the Churchfield Junior School in London, and they noticed a really important, really fundamentally sound music tradition in this school. And they created a good practice video. And this is a clip from this school. It's a percussion session. So we're just going to have sort of the first two minutes of that session. There we go.
Stop, stop, stop. Bada, 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 stop. Stomp, stomp, clap, bada, bada, ba. We're going to repeat that rhythm over and over again. You've done this before. 1, 2, 3, 4. And stomp, stomp, clap. Stomp, stomp, clap, bada, bada, ba. Stomp, stomp. A little bit louder. You guys, keep going. Keep going. You guys, keep going. You guys, stop. Get ready. 1, 2, 3, and switch.
Okay, so that's just the percussion, and obviously what they then do, they take the skills they learn away from the instrument and move them on to, in this case, the djembes. So Wide Opportunities is basically whole class instrumental teaching. Oops, 1, 2, 4, whole class instrumental teaching. So we have a whole class, we'll have 33 kids, max, and in an hour normally, we will then teach these children to play a varied kind of projects. So some of the projects that we do are well, like this. So we do string ensembles. So we will have, that could be various, there can be violins and violas, there could just be violins, there could be violins, violas and cellos and the usual combinations, so different setups. B-flat brass band, one of my favourites. As Bob mentioned before, E-flat instruments are not really something we like very much because it makes things very complicated. So B-flat concert pitch obviously is brilliant. We do have a traditional brass band Wild Opportunities class, but that's very, very challenging and you need a lot of resources in teachers to cover that. Wind bands, same thing with the brass bands. You will need, the wind bands that I'm involved in, we've got 3 or 4 teachers on. So we will have one for low brass, one for high brass, one for flutes and one for clarinets. And that's really sort of the ideal. We can do it with 3, so if you're a brass teacher like me, you'll end up with 16 beginner brass players in half an hour, which is always interesting, hence the grey hairs. As Bob was talking about earlier on. We've got keyboard Wild Opportunities. We've got percussion Wild Opportunities. Now, percussion Wild Opportunities, like we've just seen, normally we do on a rota. So they will work in the way that one term, so from September till Christmas, it could be djembes. Then from January till Easter, sort of April time, it could be tune percussion. And then the last term perhaps could be samba. We've also started experiments with something called bamboo tamboo. And the idea is basically to give them variety of the different, and so then in that year they'll learn about the various percussion instruments that we have available. Guitar Wild Opportunities, self-explanatory really. We also do year 3 Wild Opportunities. So that's kind of, we do our our Wild Opportunities class is normally year 4. So it'll be year 5 and 6 in this course. So very similar to what Bob was doing earlier on. But we do also do year 3, but because of year 3 they're not very big, the children. Recorder seems a really good viable option. I'm sure it's not legal to have 33 recorders in the same room, but nonetheless we do it anyway. But it is a really great way to get them start playing. So, what format do we teach our Wild Opportunities? We do yearly projects. So normally our projects run for the whole year. So they start in September and they run through till we finish in July. And that's kind of the norm that we do. We do offer 6-month projects for those schools that feel that their costs are too big. They need to do it for less money. So we can then offer them a 6-month project. And perhaps it can be in relationship with another school so they can share the cost. So I'll be very flexible when it comes to that. And as I said, terminal projects mainly for percussion instruments. We also do tailor-made projects. We've got a couple of schools who've expressed the wish of having Wild Opportunities over 2 years. So they start in year 4 and then they continue into year 5 with their instrumental, whatever that is. I think we've got a wind band and we have a string ensemble basically, so they run over 2 years.
Could I just make a comment about the 2-year projects? I've worked on some of those myself. And it's great that the schools are really keen to carry it on. But when you go into the 2nd year, it becomes more difficult because you have quite a range of abilities by that stage. Some of the children have really taken off with their instrument and doing really well. But some of them are struggling, and by that time they've had enough, you know. So it's difficult to keep those motivated and then to stretch the ones who are doing really well. So you have to really differentiate the material, have lots of different levels of material, so it can become more challenging. And the ones who are not interested can tend to hold back some of the others who would be maybe better off in a smaller group. So it does have its disadvantages, I think, when you follow it on for a 2nd year. Yeah. Absolutely.
So that was kind of that, and then I think it's on to sort of the aims and objectives.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit now about what are the aims of the project, what are we trying to achieve. We want to introduce awareness of all the elements of music. So there we have pitch, duration, dynamics, tempo, timbre, texture and structure. We want to develop basic instrumental skills, pulse, rhythm, technique, and oral and notation skills. I'm going to speak a little bit more about notation later on. And we want to develop the singing voice. And we also want to develop the children's performance and ensemble skills. So throughout the year, there are always lots of opportunities to perform, whether it's in the school, it might just be to another class, or it might be to parents who are invited in to come and listen. And we provide performance opportunities ourselves outside the school, and we'll talk more about those later on. And of course, along with all these musical skills, when you learn an instrument, there are lots of extra musical skills that go along with that, such as confidence, coordination, fine motor skills, spatial awareness, concentration and cooperation. And we often find that some of the children who are struggling to play the instrument will get other benefits from this project. For instance, I came across a child last year who had a speech impediment and struggled to speak, stuttered a lot. And he was very, very shy, and the class teacher said he would never speak, he would never answer any questions. But by the end of the year, he volunteered to introduce one of the pieces of music in the concert. And he stood up on the stage in front of a big audience, introduced the piece of music with no problem at all. And the class teacher said, I can't believe that, I can't believe he's done that. So, I mean, what is it in music that makes these things happen? But as we all know, it does make these things happen. So when we're doing a project like this, we're looking at a wider picture, really, not just developing the musical aspect. So these are our expectations. The majority of the children in the class will hopefully be able to maintain a steady pulse, demonstrate rhythmic competence, recognise and demonstrate different pitches, and play to a basic level using a small range of notes. Some will be able to play a wider range of notes, as we'll see, and read basic notation. Now, when we first started this project, there was quite a lot of disagreement among the teachers about how much emphasis should be placed on notation when you're teaching in a scenario like this. I'm not sure what your views are, Tom, but from my point of view, I have a Suzuki background, so I like to do a lot of oral work and memory work, especially in the beginning stages. And I found that teaching notation to the whole class, some of them will get it straight away, but some children will never understand it. So you're always struggling with those few who really can't grasp it, and it tends to slow down the progress that you can make. So I like to teach the basics, and I do display the notation as well, but I do a lot of things orally also. There's also practical problems. Some of the schools that I go into, they don't have any music stands, and they're not willing to buy any music stands. Or there's no interactive whiteboard where I can display some music. So there are problems like that. So that's another reason why I do a lot of things from memory. I don't know how you work.
No, I agree. I think it's kind of teaching them to read music backwards. So you learn the oral side, you learn how the notes sound first, and then if you want to introduce to the few that wants to learn it, then you can. Yeah. And it also helps the progression really in the ensembles, doesn't it? So,
and if we teach them the basics, then those that are going to carry on have got those skills and they can build on them.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Right,
more expectations. To be able to perform confidently in front of others as part of an ensemble. To control dynamics, just basic at this stage, maybe forte and piano. To listen to a short phrase and reproduce it on their instruments. And to improvise simple rhythms and phrases. Do also do some basic composition with the children as well. And sometimes, again, you'll find that some of them who are having difficulty playing the instrument will really excel in this area and come up with some great pieces of music, and then perhaps another child will play it.
Indeed.
More.
Yet more.
So that's what we expect from the majority, but of course some children will excel and they will perhaps perform confidently as a soloist. So if we identify somebody who is talented, then they'll have a solo spot in a concert. But to be able to play a wider range of notes. Some, as I said, will pick up the notation straight away and they'll be reading it fluently, and they'll say, oh, I found this on the internet and I've learnt it myself, once they've got the skills. And we hope that the keen ones will come and join one of our ensembles at our evening centres, which we call the Arts Centre. So we've got ensembles of all levels there, and we have beginner ensembles for all the instruments that we teach in the Wider Opportunities projects. And we hope also that some of these more able children will, or a lot of them, will continue to have lessons after the project has ended.
Indeed.
Now, of course, when you're teaching in a large group, there are some limitations. Progress is not going to, you're not going to move on as quickly as you would, of course, in a one-to-one lesson, because you've got a range of abilities and lots of children to see to. It's not possible to address technique in as much detail as in one-to-one. So you can't, for instance, I can't go around every single child and adjust their bow hold every lesson, because it would take about 10 minutes. And in the meantime, somebody over there is causing havoc, and So I can do one or two, look for the worst ones, sort those out. If I've got a good class teacher in the room as well, they can help. But I'm afraid you have to let some things slip, because it's just not possible to keep on top of everything technique-wise.
And that is a big problem, really, isn't
Yeah,
it? Because
it is, yeah.
as musicians, we obviously been trained in perfectionism. We want it to be perfect, but in a scenario like this, it doesn't work. You've got to have to move on and let things, not slide is the wrong word, but let it be and not make an issue of it, and then perhaps address those issues at a time where you can do it. Very often, if you're one, forget it. It's not going to happen. If you're two, then maybe you can just about sort of make a note to your fellow teacher that's with you and make sure that they can go and help this person out or whatever. If you're three, then it's more of a, so the more staff you'll have on the project, the better the project's going to be, basically, and the better the end product's going to be.
Mm-hmm. And how many children are we talking about?
33 max. 33 kids. I have done a Wider Opportunities with 66 children in an hour.
How many staff on that?
Me.
Just you? Oh my God.
That is the majority of my grey hairs. I will never, ever do that again. But it had to be tried. So we did. So anyway, sorry.
It's difficult to differentiate satisfactorily. In other words, to produce, to give everybody a part that is at their level. That's very difficult. So you have to really stay on the middle ground, try to stretch those that are doing really well, and provide something easier for the others who are struggling. But it is difficult to do that with such a large group. This is a big problem. Pupils will not necessarily practice at home. They all have an instrument which is loaned to them by the music service, and they sign a loan agreement form. The parents sign a loan form to say they'll look after it, etc. So the instruments are able to go home every week. Whether they do get taken home every week is a different matter, and whether they get taken out of the case, even if they go home, is another matter. So it's really hard to keep a check on that, isn't it? Yeah.
I think we've all had the excuses. I'm sorry, so I couldn't practice because, my mum
was watching Coronation
Street, or my dog ate my mouthpiece, or whatever it is. It's really silly excuses all the way through. So we've all been there. Which kind of brings on to the next one.
Yeah. This is something that we are continually working on, how to get the pupils to continue once they've had this year of Wider Opportunities. There are lots of issues there. Mainly the factor is cost, because when they do this project for 1 year, it's free to the children, and they're loaned the instrument for free as well. If they want to continue, they usually then continue in a small group situation in the school, and they can still have the instrument for free, but they have to pay towards lessons then. And even though it's only going to be a small amount, nothing like the cost of a private lesson, of course it puts a lot of parents off, and they think, oh, well, we had a year for free, why do we have to pay for it now? So cost is always a big factor, really, perhaps the main factor.
So that all sounds a little bit sort of downhearted. It wasn't sort of to make it tell you that's a bad thing. Wider Opportunities, we think, is a good thing. So we want to put in why Wider Opportunities, why should you do it? And I just need to reconnect to the internet here, so bear with me for a second. And there we go. Right, so it really is a fantastic opportunity to get music into schools. It requires a lot from the music services administration team to communicate with the schools and get in there and talk to them and persuade them to take it on. Now, luckily, by law, the schools in England have to have music in the schools, so they have to deliver somebody. Again, you know, what they want and what we want might not necessarily be the same thing. So it's a great opportunity to inspire the next generation of musicians. It really is important that the teachers and tutors that we send into our schools deliver the wild opportunities. They're inspirational, so our possible new kids can be inspired to then take up the instrument and learn from that. It's a fantastic opportunity for people to experience music firsthand. You know, just the most exciting time, I think, for the kids is when you say, right, next week, guys, you're getting your instrument. The excitement is immense. It goes crazy. My Twitter feed last week was going mad because one of my kids was like, oh, I can't wait. I really want to do this. I want to do this. It's fantastic, and I can't wait. And I want the euphonium, and I want to play this. And so it's all very, very, very excited about it. So that's fantastic. It's a great opportunity for cross-curriculum projects in schools. Very often, primary schools in England do projects. So it could be the Egyptians. It could be arts, it could be all sorts of things that the wild opportunities your year 4 class could then create a piece of music for. So at Easter time, we are having, in one of my schools I'm in, are having an artist in who's they're doing paintings, and we've then agreed with the schools that the wild opportunities class is going to produce music for some of the paintings, and it's going to be recorded, so when you're looking at the painting you can then press the MP3 play or then play a piece of our music played by Johnny on the trumpet. Not sure how beautiful it'll be, but at least it'll be there. Let's hope it's a picture of a boat, perhaps. But it's all there, the chances there. And Salford is an interesting place. We've got schools which are in very, very wealthy areas. So one of the schools I'm in, we've got kids who've been picked up in Bentleys and Rolls Royces and that kind of thing. And I've also seen a school where kids turn up without no shoes on because mum and dad couldn't afford shoes. So it's a very, very big variety. So you can imagine that behaviour in those schools can be very challenging at times, but it is proven that having wild ops in the classroom in the school changes the behavioural, the way the behaviour is. Academic achievements go up, and general communication within the school environment improves dramatically as well. And we can see the schools that have a massive music presence actually are achieving higher results in the grades that they have to produce for the government. So all in all, we all know this, but sometimes it can be tricky to explain that to everyone else.
So we're going to talk a little bit now about how we structure our lessons. Our lessons are 1 hour long, and we usually start with a short activity, something like we did this afternoon. It might be a Dalcroze activity if you've got a big space. It could be some Kodai, it could be some activity like we've just done that involves the whole class together. And we try to link that then to what we're going to do in the main activity. Now, if you have more than one instrument here, this is the time where we split up. So you need space. You need a school which has got enough rooms for you all to go off and have your own sort of sectional rehearsal, whatever you do. And then we come back together at the end of the lesson, and we usually play together what we've been working on during the lesson and recap the main points. And how I work is I like to focus on a different aspect of musical development per term. So in the first 6 weeks, I'll focus on pulse and rhythm. And then in the second 6 weeks, I might focus on pitch, and then I might focus on improvisation or something different. So I divide it up into blocks like that. Okay. Oh, is there one more?
No, it's just that one.
Oh yeah, we've spoken about the number of tutors,
Yeah.
really, haven't we? Yeah.
We feel that you do one where you're on your own.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
If you're on your own in a class and you haven't got any support from the school, i.e. a teacher in there, it's really, really difficult to manage it. If you have a teacher in there, it's possible to do. But really, from our point of view, we recommend to have 2 teachers at all times in a wild opportunity session, because it is, you've got to have to address the way that they hold the instruments at some point. So it really is important that.
The class teacher is supposed to be involved in the project. When we first started doing this, it was made clear to the schools that the class teacher had to be present because they're supposed to learn the instruments along with the children. But due to financial constraints and time and things, we find that a lot of the schools, when we are doing our session, that is when the teachers have their planning and preparation time. So they'll disappear and go mark their books or whatever they have to do, which is not ideal really. We find that it works better when the teacher is involved and learning along with the children. And it's fun for them as well.
It is, it is. And it's great for kids to sit there and hear Miss Jones can't play a note on the flute.
Struggling away.
Struggling away. And it just sounds like a really wintry, an autumn day with lots of wind. You know, and then, but if they can do that, well, so can I. So it really does help, and it gives the kid more of a persuasion to go and do it. So Bob said up there that the ideas of how to do this, these wild opportunity sessions, you know. So we want just to very briefly give you some tips on how to manage it. Now there's tons of tips, tons of things really to do, but discipline, SEN and seating plan. Now SEN stands for Special Educational Needs. When we started one of my groups in September, we turned up and we were going to start the first time we were going to do something, a bamboo tambour, which is a percussion instrument. And we got started, and then as we started playing, one of the kids just went absolutely mad. Started going, "Ah!" Started running around the classroom. I'm not exaggerating. We were all going, "Whoa, what happened there?" And teacher goes, "Oh, I am sorry. I forgot to tell you that Sam's got autism. He doesn't like loud sounds." It would have been nice to have known that. So SEN, special educational needs, is really fundamental. You know, with inclusion nowadays being so widespread, it really is important that we know what problems those children might have.
It may affect the type of instrument that they play as well. If there's a choice of instruments and you know about a child's physical disability or whatever, then you can choose an appropriate instrument for them. So it's really important to ask the class teacher first, you know, who's got which problems, and then you can sort of tailor your lesson towards them.
They are supposed to tell us, but they don't always do that. Yeah. Discipline, make sure that the class knows who's the boss, basically.
And you have to have established rest position, for instance. I always make my violinists sit, you know, as they would in an orchestra, violin on one knee, bow in the other hand, all the time when I'm speaking. I'm constantly saying rest position, because otherwise they're just, you know, twiddling away when you're trying to speak.
Absolutely. Seating plan, know where you want to have them seating. It is not really great to have a cellist walking around in a classroom with tables and all sorts and trying to balance that across the floor between other instruments and so on. So know where they're going to sit, and once they know the rules where they're sitting, then future lessons run much more smoothly.
Can I just add to that? Yeah. Also related to the educational needs. Last year, for instance, I had a little boy who I think he was left-handed, but every time he put his violin up, he had the violin and the bow the wrong way round, and still at the end of the year in July, he was still doing it. So I made sure that he was sitting in front of me. So every time we put our instruments up, could just quickly swap it round without any fuss, without drawing attention to him, and without interrupting the rest of the lesson. So that's just one example of making sure they're sitting in an appropriate place.
Absolutely. You mentioned have clear signals to follow. So you know, tell them to put their instruments down, resting position. Tell them, you know, very clear. You know, when my hands are down, that means your instrument should be down. Don't play when my hands up. That means your instrument should be ready to play. So it's a lot by communicating by sight as well.
I often just put my bow on my head like that, and that means they have to do the same, so the sound stops immediately, rather than me trying to say, stop, stop, you know, and they carry on. So just bow on the head, straight away.
Yeah, could be difficult with a tuba.
Yeah.
or drum kit, perhaps, but hey, there we go. But that's really important, clear hand signals, clear signals to follow. Inspiring and relevant backing tracks. We like using backing tracks while we teach the kids in these wild opportunity situations. The children are aware that they can only play one note, two notes, perhaps only three notes. They are aware they are not as good as the ones that I've heard. They're aware they are not as good as you are. It helps a lot to have a really cool backing track in the background they can play along to. not only does it make them more secure, but it also gives them a really good oral stimuli that they can, especially for brass and wind players, that they can reflect to. So that's quite important. Less focus on notation, more focus on oral and memory skills. Notation are important, but don't get bogged down on it. That's something that they can learn. Go on to, focus on, get them playing, get the instruments out, get them playing. That's what we want to do. That's what we're there for. So focus on that. Break down instructions into small steps. If you repeat yourself over and over and over again, that's exactly what you should be doing. And make sure it's small steps all the time, that even the simplest person can understand.
In fact, when I first started teaching in this way, it took me a long time to realise how slowly you have to go and how much you have to break down the instructions. For instance, first lesson when they get their violin, taking it out of the case can be absolute chaos. You wouldn't think so. You'd think you could say, take your violin out of the case, and they would take it out and put it on the knee. But no, they're all upside down on the floor. You've never seen anything like it. So you have to go very slowly. You have to say, place your violin case on the table with the zips facing towards you. That takes ages. That takes about 5 minutes.
And the handle. Don't forget the handle.
Yeah, and the handle,
Because what you get, if the handle is on the way, they start doing this, going...
Yeah, or it's upside down, and oh gosh. And then you have to, okay, unzip the zips, wait for everybody, and then someone will say, I haven't got any zips on my case. Yeah. It really is, that's slow, yeah.
So that's
to avoid breakages and mishaps and all kinds of things.
That's quite important.
Yeah.
Plan your lessons, link activities and keep the pace. So know what you're going to be doing in this lesson, know what you're going to be doing in the lesson at the end of this term, or perhaps even at the end of the year. Know where you want to go with them. Link your activities. So if you do a starter, make sure that as much as possible links to your main activity. So as Imogen, the piece that we started with today could be one of them. So you start with the warming up activity, you actually more or less learn the music by tapping the pulse. You move on to playing the piece of music. They already know the rhythm, so don't have to worry about the rhythm. They only need to learn to put the bow on the D string, and that's it. Trust me, even that can be a challenge. And then keep the pace. When you've got 33 kids in a class with instruments and violins, I suppose, and poke your eyes out and all sorts of things, you've really got to make sure you keep the pace. They have to be bombarded with information all the time. If you give them just a fraction of a minute to thinking, then all hell breaks loose. So keep the pace going. So by the time that you finish the Wild Opportunity session, you're like this on your knees. So that's important. Keep repeating your main focus and recap previous lessons. When you turn up for the next lesson in your planned lessons, do remember to repeat what you did last week, because they will all have forgotten what they did. Well, they haven't quite forgotten it. It's still buried somewhere in the back of their heads, but you need to get that back out before you can continue.
And if you keep repeating repertoire, by the time it comes to a concert, you've got a whole bank of pieces then that are ready to perform.
Don't be worried about saying the same thing over and over and over again. Make sure you do that. Use your colleagues and the resource available to you. So if you are the lucky one that you have 2, 3, or perhaps 4 in a session, use them and abuse them. Make sure they're really working hard and helping you in achieving what it is that you as a team want to achieve. So it's about using each other really more than one person using everybody else. So make sure you work as a team and use all the resources available. So if you do have a whiteboard available, use it. If you do have music stands available, use them. So really use everything you have. If you haven't got something, ask for it. The worst thing they can say is, no, sorry, we can't do that. So that's important. So, but sort of to go down to, there's a lot more points, and we've got much more things that we could put on this, but we haven't got all day. So just to boil this down to sort of 4 points. The most important ones for us, for Imogen and me, was the discipline and the SEN and seating plan. Make sure that you know what you're doing, know where that's going.
I've just got one thing to add there, actually, Tom. I try to get hold of the school's discipline
Yeah.
policy when I go in. So if whatever they use for rewards and punishments, I would then try and use the same method in my lessons so that there's some continuity there.
Yeah.
So if they give out stars or merit points, then I'll do the same. And then the children realise that this is a lesson, the same as all their other lessons as well, you know, and it's not just time to have fun and relax a bit. They've still got to be working hard and focused.
Yeah. The clear signals make sure that you know exactly what you're doing. The kids will copy you down to the last detail. So that's really, really important that you do that. If you pick your nose while you're playing the violin, they will do the same thing. Miss, but you pick your nose. And so make sure that you know exactly what you're doing. Break down instructions into small steps, really important. And plan the lessons, link activities, and keep the pace. That's really, really important as well. Right, concerts. It's important that they have a goal, something to work towards. So we try very much to have 3 school concerts a year. So it'll be a Christmas, Easter, and a summer concert. So they've got something that they can work towards at the end of each term. So they can invite parents and aunts and hamsters and God knows what they want to invite to these concerts. They all come along. We do every year, at the end of the year, we'll come on to this more in more detail later, but every year we do a 4-day Mappers Summer Showcase at our local opera house. So we've got 4 days of concerts, and in one day we will have roughly between 250 and 300 kids in through the doors and out again, performing to parents and aunties and all that kind of stuff. So we've got a video of showing that later on. Just this September last year, we joined the Greater Manchester Music Hub, which is a relationship between the 9 music services. Funnily enough, Manchester Music Service decided not to be part of the Greater Manchester Hub. So they're on their own, but all the other counties and all the other cities around Manchester are part of the hub. And we do various projects. So we would say, right, well, I'm sure you do the same thing. So we will have the 9 services get together. We'll have a string day. You went to the string day, didn't you?
Yeah, at the BBC film.
For the BBC Philharmonic. So all the string players from the 9 music services gets together and do play in a concert and rehearse together. Come and play with the Halle. It's a Wide Opportunities project. So all schools are invited to come along to this. We'll know more about that later. So, brings us to this is a little concert. Now we had a problem. We wanted to record our kids and show you what we do. But when we asked the parents said no. And if the parents say no, the school says no. So therefore we can't show you any clips of our kids. Long story short, in England we've had loads of problems with sexual predators that have been caught, etc., etc., etc. So therefore, they're very obstinate on this. Therefore, we weren't able to do this. Luckily, some people have put stuff on YouTube. YouTube is a fantastic thing, and this is sort of a typical brass kind of wire-ups towards the end of the school year that they will do. So here we go. Kingsfleet Primary School. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there you go. It is really important to show the schools that they're buying into this Wide Opportunities, that they also get something from it. So playing at assemblies and that kind of stuff is quite fundamental and very important. Right, Christ the King.
This is a school that I teach in, and this is their performance at our summer showcase in 2012. Now, at this school, I do violin on my own, and I have a year 3 class, which is age 7 to 8, and that's quite unusual, really. We usually aim at the following year group, ages 8 to 9. So it's quite difficult. That 1 year difference in age makes quite a lot of difference in the speed that they progress. But this class were particularly good. So we're going to see them here playing a piece of music called Giant Footsteps. This is written by a composer called Edward Hughes Jones. The piano part, however, for it is not very inspiring. So a colleague of mine created his own backing track on GarageBand, which had the sound of the giant's footsteps in it and the giant roaring and all that, and the kids loved it. Here you will see it, though, not with the backing track, but with a live band, because we like to have a live band accompanying the musicians when we give these concerts. So they're going to sing first, and then they're going to play it.
Yeah, can I just add to that before we hear it, that the music service basically organised the event. They contact the concert venue, and we will then organise it. But the teachers basically set the programme for the kids. So they said, you've got 10 minutes, and then you can play as many pieces you would like in those 10 minutes. And that is your performance slot. So here they are. So that's our summer showcase. So the kids always got something to work towards. And I would like to point out, actually, because your signals, the way that image is always very clear, so the kids always know exactly what to do. And your teaching is just the same, like this. So even when we come and see it, it's like, ooh, you know, dare not do anything. So it's brilliant. Now, one of the big things that I enjoy doing with them is this Come Play with the Hallé. So we're very fortunate that we've got 2 of the best orchestras in the country up in Manchester, the BBC Philharmonic and the Hallé Orchestra. Now, education has become more and more important for these professional orchestras, and they've really taken on board. So every year, the Hallé Orchestra offers the opportunity for our Wild Opportunities kids to come and play with the Hallé Orchestra. They don't just listen, they actually play with them, which is an amazing experience. Just the sight when the kids walk in to the Bridgewater Hall, they're taken aback by this massive concert hall. They're blown away. Just that is enough. So it's a great opportunity. Now, there's a little about 5-minute video here made by the Hallé about the Wild Opportunities concert, Come Play with the Hallé. So we wanted you to see that so you kind of get an idea of what it's all about. I should say also that, I didn't say this, but I should say, if you don't understand anything we say, if there are terminology you're unsure about, anything like that, please just don't say anything. Just okay. Of course, you can always ask questions in Danish if you want to. Even that's not a problem. Direct the Danish questions to Imogen.
No.
That'll be fine. I'll watch your face. Anyway, so here is a little bit about Come Play with the Hallé.
Good afternoon. My name's Steve Pickett. I'm the Education Director of the Hallé. Welcome to a very empty Bridgewater Hall. It is at the moment. In about an hour's time, it will be filled with loads of children. Our concerts over the next 2 days are called Come and Play with the Hallé. And they involve the opportunity for children on the Wider Opportunity Scheme and as part of Sing Up to come and play and sing with the orchestra. Come and Play with the Hallé has been generously funded by the DCSF through something called the North West Music Partnership, which is a partnership that involves the Hallé working with Manchester, Salford, Stockport and Bolton Music Services. Most of these kids are coming to listen to a live orchestra for the first time, but not only are they doing that, they are coming to play and they're coming to sing with it as well. And in most cases, or certainly in a lot of them, the teachers join in as well.
I'm Tom Redmond. I'm the Hallé's second horn player here in the Bridgewater Hall. Throughout the year we take single players or 2, 3 players into schools, and at the end of the year for the summer we like to do, well, something grand, so we bring the schools to the hall.
They will be performing 2 pieces with their instruments. One is Tequila. That piece is written by Chuck Rio and it's been especially arranged for the orchestra. The kids have bits to play with the orchestra. The orchestra has interludes with saxophones, with trumpets and trombones. The other piece is something more sort of what you might expect the Hallé to play, and that's the Cuckoo Polka by Johann Strauss.
Should we have a quick cuckoo rehearsal before we begin? Cuckoo, 1, 2. I think we're there. Perfect.
And so the Hallé plays the Cuckoo Polka, and the cuckoos are provided by 800 plus children in the audience. So it's quite an effect, to say the least, that having all those birds around is quite hilarious, actually, and great fun for the kids.
To have such a responsive and excited crowd is, well, it's brilliant, and that's why we perform. It's nice that we can see them getting something back from it too, especially when they join in. It's brilliant for us to be involved in so many young people, you know, starting at the very beginning, and if we can sort of help them on their way, inspire them, then fantastic. Who knows, you know, maybe they'll be in the Hallé one day.
So there you go. An absolutely fantastic experience to do that with him. Little picture there. What we'll do, we'll just have a quick break for coffee, waters and whatever you want to do. And please, 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 we're here all day and we'll be here tomorrow morning as well. If you've got any questions whatsoever, please ask. They can do it as well.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well done. Well done, guys. Right. Okay. We will we'll start up again. Oh, that really woke up my hands as well. That's good. Right. So, what resources are expected to be supplied by MAPIS, the music service that we work for? Because that's obviously important as well. So, instruments for the various projects. So we supply every single instrument that is used in Wide Opportunities, and that's a lot of instruments.
Should we just say, when the project first started, it was a national project and it was government funded. It was still a national project, but it was government funded, and so every music service got a certain amount of money from the government to put this project in place. So we used that to buy a lot of our instruments.
That money,
that's the major cost, isn't it? Yeah.
That money we got from the government funded 5 projects that we started off with, and since then we still get money from the government. And that money has been being channeled, some of the money is still being used for the Wide Opportunities to purchase instruments and maintenance and so on. We'll come on to that a bit later. So repair of maintenance of instruments is also a cost that we take on us. Obviously, we do try and help those children who are unfortunate in dropping their instrument due to accidents and so on, but mainly we are the ones that stand for the cost of those instruments.
Unless an instrument has been deliberately damaged,
Yeah.
and then the parents are liable and they sign a form to say that.
Yeah.
Now, we've had a girl who hit her sister with a flute and it's bent, so completely irreparable, so that
Yeah.
has to be paid for by her parents, which they weren't very happy about.
No. There we go. Highly qualified tutors. It's really, really important that the tutors that we use to deliver the Wide Opportunities are exceptional at what they do. They have to be inspirational, they have to be good at classroom management, they have to be good at paperwork, managing paperwork, i.e. Know what instrument goes to where, who's got what instruments, and etc., etc., etc. So we need to make sure that the teachers that the music service uses are good ones. We timetable Wide Opportunities. That's a schema lightning. So every timetable, every time people say timetable to me, I think time and a table. It makes no sense. So it's the ad hoc translation. Yeah, timetable the Wide Opportunity projects. That is a really big challenge because the schools in England normally in the mornings is off limits for any activities. So you're only allowed in most schools in the afternoon. But in the mornings, to get in there is very often not that easy. So we then, the service, we then timetable them to say, right, well, we've got to have Wide Opportunities this school, run by this teacher. And then the teachers are given the timetable, and then they're asked to fit the rest of their teaching around the Wide Opportunities, because the Wide Opportunities affects a school's management of their time, it affects the teachers' time, it affects the kids. So that's more or less set in stone. Of course, we can be flexible if we need to, but most of the time, the time is set, and this is the time where you'll be teaching Wide Opportunities, and that's that. Tutors are expected to plan their sessions. So we do expect all teachers to plan the sessions. We do expect them to, as I say, plan the sessions, prepare at home, arrange music that they want to use in these sessions.
And planning has to be submitted from time to time, doesn't it? Yeah, just to make
So
sure
from
it's
time
all
to
being
time,
done. Yeah.
You'll get a request from one of the management team saying, could we see your planning for this period, and then you send it in. So you've got to make sure, you've got to make sure, whether you follow it or not, it's a different,
Whether you're making it up retrospectively,
retrospectively.
the night before you have to hand it in.
So we do expect that. But no, at the end of the day, you know, it's not really, to be honest, it's not the planning really that's important. The important thing is that that we know where we're going with it. The teachers know where they go with it. If they plan ahead with it, they know what they're going to do. The product's going to be good. The product's good. The customer's happy. Customer's happy. Everybody's happy. Hey ho. So we really want to do that. So teacher resources. Now we brought some resources at the back there if you want to have a look at it. just so you can see the kind of stuff that we use. We couldn't bring everything. I've got a 5 gigabyte cloud storage somewhere at Google in the States with stuff in. If you want to see that, I can share that with you, but I wasn't going to print it all out and bring it over. So I'm more than happy to do that. So we do have, so on composition arrangements, Imogen already talked about some. I've got one over there called the Echo Song, which is one that I use a lot to work with stuff. We've got one that's called Giant Footsteps, which Imogen, we played that already, so that's a good one. Only You, we'll come to that in a minute by
Got a video
Sue,
of that.
so you can talk about that in a minute. Purchase resources. Purchase resources. Little Shiny Brass is a cracking company that produces music for brass instruments of all ages. Basically, you purchase the piece, which is £15 normally, and then you download the PDFs, and then you can print out as many million copies as you like. So that's a really good resource. Charanga Online is similar to, what was it called? You showed the online thing, music, Delta, yeah. It's very much like that, but aimed specifically at wide opportunities. And the ABRSM has gone into the Associated Board of Royal something.
Schools of Music.
Thank you. Schools of Music. I've gone into this and are helping develop this into a really good resource, a great resource. So and I use that. There's a folder over there on the back table there with basically it's got a whole year's of lesson plans. So you get that folder and you're ready to go. That's it. That's all you need.
You need an interactive whiteboard, don't you,
Yes.
to deliver that, because it's all, it's
do.
all online and the lesson is just there for you, really. So it's a good starting point if you're not sure how to go about this. It's a really good starting point, isn't it? Yeah.
You'll very soon figure out that it's not the be-all and end-all. And there's things you don't like about it, things you like about it, so you end up mixing it a bit.
I found actually when I went to some training on charanga, there are loads of great things about it, but for my purposes, I thought it moved too slowly. For instance, they had a whole term and they're still plucking, and if you give a kid a violin, all they want to do is play with the bow, isn't it? So I found that it was too slow, really. The progress was too slow. But I think, having said that they have updated it since then, so it may be different now. Yeah.
Bamboo Tamboo is a new thing in England. It's a predecessor. Well, it's not. Bamboo Tamboo is not new. It's a new thing to us. It's a predecessor to the steel pans. So it's a viable instrument played in Jamaica and those places. And it's a great way for the kids to learn rhythms and understanding the context of how different rhythm fits together. So that's a good resource to use as well. I've lost my internet connection again. So now electronics one. We already saw this morning. We saw the Appleton Live. It's a fantastic piece of software. So IT is important as well. GarageBand, those of you who've got an Apple or an iPad, anything like that, if you haven't got GarageBand, get it. It's fantastic. It's a really great resource. I don't know what I would do without it, really. Also, Audacity is a great piece of software. It's a freeware. You can download and you can change the pitch, the speed, all sorts of things on an MP3. So you can change. So as was said before, Bob would mention about the pieces that they are using, that they're running 120 beats per minute, which is too fast. So with Audacity, you can load the MP3 and you can change the speed on it and the pitch and etc. So that's really, really good. Obviously, Sibelius for arranging your own arrangements for the various ensembles that you run. So,
can I just add, actually, Jens was just asking me about resources in the break. When we first started, there were not many published resources for this type of teaching. So we just had to pick something from this book, something from that book, and put your own repertoire together. But now a lot of people are writing specifically for this type of situation. So there's a book at the back there called Class Act by a lady called Sarah Watts. And it says for teaching in a class situation. So I've brought the violin one along with me so you can have a look at that. But she does it for every instrument. So she's a really good person to know about. And there are other composers as well who are producing books that you can use, you know, you just take it into the classroom and you can use all that material as a starting point. You know, it's a good place to get going with that. Yeah.
So, only you.
Oh yes, okay. So this is an example. It's Christ the King again, the school that we saw earlier. This is an example of a pop song arranged for Wide Opportunities performance. Obviously, it's quite an old one. Don't know if any of you know it. Sort of from the 80s. So not many of the children knew it, but they did like it. So you might want to choose things that are more current. So you'll see them singing along in the verses, doing some actions, and then in the chorus they're just playing 3 notes. We just done the note B, so I wanted something that had A and B in it, and it's also got D string as well. So it's just got A, B, D. It was quite difficult to find another piece of music that had those 3 notes in that was easy enough for them to play. So they play along in the chorus.
There we go. So when Jens came over to visit us in Salford, and he told, and we heard the news about the new school reform and everything that happens here, I thought, wow, what an amazing opportunity. It's absolutely, it's incredible. I mean, you're given, it's like, you know, you can, well, it's all there for you. It's just for you to go in and do what you need to do. It's absolutely brilliant. So it will require some new thinking, not just from your teachers. It will also require some new thinking from you guys, because it's a different way. You've got to, you've got to work with the schools and setting up these projects in the schools, and that can be challenging because they will want these projects like this at a certain time, and it has to be at this time. It can't be any other time. You can't do it this time, and therefore you're back and forth and trying to figure out ways of setting it up. Then finally you manage to get it all sorted. Then the teachers you had in mind can't do it because they've got something else on that day. And then the rooms, there might not be the rooms that you need. There can be all sorts of things that can play havoc with your planning on this. Ensuring a great product. I said this before, you need to make sure that the teaching that goes on in the schools are up to scratch and really, really good. So we come out and observe the lessons that takes place on a regular basis. Not because we don't trust our teachers, because we do, but because we have to prove to our superiors that what our teachers do is the right thing. We know it is, so we can then document it for those people and say, well, there you go, that's the results and this is how it works. But it's really important because if the school's happy, so is the kids. If the kids are happy, so are the parents. If the parents are happy, well, the parents are more likely to buy into what we deliver and then continue with instrumental learning. Increased communication with tutors. Because this is can be very stressful. It really can. If you're all alone with, a class of 30 children with brass instruments and every single valve is sticking, and they all go, sir, my valve is sticking, can I? And they're on the queue as long as you can see, but at the same time you've got to deliver a bit of singing, you've got to deliver a bit of note reading, perhaps some rhythm reading while you're sorting these valves out. So the teachers, tutors they need your help, they need some help here at times to either talk things through, suggestions how to solve problems, etc., etc., etc. So communication with teachers is really essential. Developing progression routes. In Salford, when we started our Wild Opportunities in 2004, we thought, wow, brilliant idea, excellent, let's get something going. Went into schools and just started doing it. Now, we didn't quite think far as thinking, where can we go after this? That was our mistake. You got that opportunity, now you know. If you can say Wild Opportunities or equivalent in a Danish school, where do we want them to go from here? We want them to go to there and there and there. If you can lay that out now before you start any projects like this, then I think it's got a great success rate. It'll be very, very good. Resources, instruments. You're going to need resources for instruments, obviously. You're going to need resources for repairs. You're going to need teaching resources. You're going to supply your teachers with materials so they can deliver the product that you want them to deliver, etc., etc., etc. So that's really important as well. Specific projects, because you compromise a bit on the quality. That's really the wrong word to use, but it is a compromise. Wild Opportunity is a compromise. You can't go into as much detail as you would like to do. So you will have to then have some projects that you can work towards, like the Halle concerts, like the play with the BBC, like coming down to the summer concerts, school concerts, and all this kind of stuff. You're going to have those in place so the kids have got something to work towards and make it exciting, and they can have achievements, certificates, and that kind of stuff. So that's really quite important. Awareness. It's all well and good, and we have learned this the hard way. It's all well and good that you deliver a fantastic teaching, some fantastic lessons and fantastic products and etc., etc., etc. If no one knows about it, then it's no good. So you got to make sure that you get the message out to the parents. The parents are the one you need to get hold of, saying, listen, this is what we're doing in your child's school. Come in and have a listen. We're doing a concert on this day. Come and see what we're doing. And by the way, also, on a Thursday evening, we've got this going on at the music school, and etc., etc., etc. So make them aware of what goes on, what you do, what the potentials are, where they can go with this, all those sort of things. That's really important. Because if you don't, that happens. Complete and utter chaos. Not from, but in the classroom. And you're going to have teachers getting more grey than me, perhaps even losing their hair as well, and running out and saying, I'm not doing it, forget about it. I'll just teach one-to-one. That's what I was trained for, that's what I'll do. End of discussion. So if you can make an inspiration for them to do it, and you can show them that it is possible to do it and they can get something from it, they will do it, and it will inspire them, and it will inspire a new generation of musicians. So, so yes, the tutors might not be that keen on it, but you're the ones that need to persuade them that it is the right thing to do. So good luck with that. Anyway, so how many of us kids play? Well, we've got 52 schools out of 86 in Salford who currently participate in Wild Opportunities. Which, to be honest, has fallen a bit. We went through, the whole world's been through a massive economic downturn. That has an effect on everything, and there's also an effect here. So we used to be up more like the 60, 65 mark. So a few schools have fallen away because there isn't the funding to do it. But currently we've got 52 schools, which we're reasonably happy with, and that is increasing. We went through a massive restructure, and that's been for the better in many ways. And we now have a dedicated person that looks after the Wild Opportunities and can focus all their time on that and chase that up and contact the school. So that's all good. We've got more than 1,500 children taking part in Wild Opportunities across Salford, which we are very pleased with. As I said, Salford is a deprived area, parts of it, and some parts are far from it. So therefore, obviously, we've got more than 1,500 instruments are in circulation throughout this Wild Opportunities, and that's just the Wild Opportunities. So talking about resources, right? You've got to have resource to do that. You've got to have resource to store those instruments when they come back in, because it does happen. The school goes, oh, by the way, we're having our school refurbished and we can't have your instruments. Can you have it back in? And being a council, obviously, it always happens like 3 or 4 schools having the same work done at the same time. So all of a sudden they go, here's about 150 instruments, you know, find somewhere to store them, kind of thing. So you've got to be prepared for that as well. We've got about 36% of our Wild Opportunities kids decide to continue in the second year. Now, statistics are a lovely thing because you can manipulate them in any way you want. So what it means is that 36 of our kids who play in the first years of Wild Opportunity continue to play in the second year. Now, that doesn't mean that they choose one-to-one tuition. It doesn't mean that they join an ensemble. It just means that they continue to play. So it can also be that they continue to play in the second year Wild Opportunity. It can also mean that they opt to continue playing in a larger group within the school. It is still, as far as we're concerned, music, and they're involved with music within the service, and that's what we want. And we want to keep them within the service, and that's what we're doing. So far, so good. Now, the next step for us is to maintain that they then be more serious about their music making. So, progression routes. I keep getting locked off the internet here, there's a bit of a problem. Right, there we are. So, at our end, we've got our art ensemble, which is basically our evening. So that goes on Mondays, Wednesdays and Thursdays. We've got music groups that happens. So they can go from the Wild Opportunities, go into the arts ensembles. This will be different from each individual music service. I'll go through these very quickly. It's just to sort of illustrate to you that if you know the routes that your kids can go, where they can go, ensemble-wise, then they've got that laid out now, then you stand a much better chance of being successful with anything like this. So that's kind of what we've identified currently. What's important for us is to know that once you've finished your Wild Opportunities year, we then need to get onto those kids and get them becoming part of the music service, being part of what we do. And we do that by saying, here's an invitation to this ensemble, here's an invitation to that ensemble, and here's an invitation to come and join me for instrumental lessons, etc., etc., etc. So you need to make sure that you know that.
It's not without problems though, is it?
No.
There's a factor of cost, again, that we've already discussed. Some of the parents don't have transport, they haven't got a car, and they might live a long way from the arts centre, so we have all sorts of issues like that to contend with.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's not that easy. Right, cost to the music service. Right, purchase of instruments, obviously, it's a big cost. We've got to buy these instruments in that we use. Now, you can obviously decide that we're only going to deliver Wild Opportunities on block flight of recorders. yeah, you could, but I wouldn't recommend it.
There are, there are cheap ways of doing it. For instance, we've had ukulele projects. Ukuleles are quite reasonable to get hold of. Some of the music services in the area do ocarina, plastic ocarinas, or the fife, which is like a little plastic flute, isn't it? And then you don't have so many costs with repairs and things either. So there are ways you can cut the costs,
So repairs and maintenance of instruments. Obviously, if you're running brass, flute and woodwind, string, all this, there are repairs that you need to look after and make sure. Payment of tutors. Now, this is based on the way that we work, because our tutors are self-employed. We then have a cost of teachers and tutors. So we pay our tutors £25 or whatever, but the real cost for their session is £33. So the £8 that goes on top of that, the music service funds, that comes out of the music service pockets. So we need to make sure that those costs are calculated into it as well. So roughly, a wind band wide opportunity project costs just around 9,200 kroner a year to run for us. And that's very roughly. That can vary a lot, just to give you an idea of what the costs are. Compared to that, a recorded wide opportunity possibly will cost 400, so around 4,000 kroner or thereabouts. So there are differences in the expenses.
Thomas?
Yeah.
This 9 to
Go on.
500.
Ja.
Er det en lærer og en klasse og instrumenter, du tænker på der?
Ja. Ja, det er det.
Fordi vi så jo, da vi var derovre, der så vi jo 2 lærere plus skolelærer og sådan noget på.
Ja. Ja.
Det må koste dobbelt op.
Det koster, ja, det er en lille smule anderledes på den måde, at den, der leder en gruppe, får mere i løn end dem, som ikke leder. Ja. Så det er ikke så bare til at doble op, men ja, det er baseret på en lærer. Så det er sådan, det er. As I said before, it's all good we do all this, but if no one knows about it, then there's no good. So you will need to be an advertisement cost in here as well, to make sure that schools, pupils and the parents knows all about it.
So this is what we are working on at the moment, because up to now we haven't been too good at publicising what we do. I mean, wider opportunities, the name itself is not really self-explanatory. So that we've called it that because that's what it was originally called when the government said they wanted to widen opportunities to all children. So that's where the name came from, but it doesn't tell you what it's all about. So we need to tell schools and parents what it actually is and what it involves. So we're in the process of putting together a series of brochures all about what we do in the Wider Opportunities project, an instrumental brochure as well for all Wider Opportunities pupils, which is specifically about their instrument, what they can do with their instrument, which ensembles they can join, for instance. And then we have an arts centre brochure for all the pupils and parents, which tells them of all the ensembles and groups that we offer. Once children are a member of the Arts Centre, they pay termly, but then they can join any number of ensembles they like. So once they're a member, all these things are available to them. So we need to get these. Oh, sorry. The advertisement pack.
So just there needs to be a pack that goes home with the kids, don't they? So once they finish the year of the Wider Opportunities, the idea is that we give them a pack saying, right, there you go. This is now where you can go with this. Take it home, show it to your mum and dad, grandparents, whoever it is, and hopefully that will then inspire them to take it on. We try and do that throughout the year. So hopefully, once this is all in place, we can do that progressively throughout the year, so the kids and parents know what goes on.
And we hope that this will up our numbers and get more of them to continue. In fact, these brochures we'd like to go into libraries and leisure centres, places around the county, so that the general public can pick them up and see what they can come be involved in, because we have adult groups as well, don't we, in the arts centre. So
anyway, so currently £27 per hour per tutor we pay our tutor, so that's the cost to the school. Sorry, I think this is actually yours, but never mind. One class teacher released from teaching 1 hour per week. We mentioned this before. It is really important, if at all, the school can release a teacher that can be part of this and play along with you, with the kids, and be involved in all this. It makes a world of difference. When we do projects like the Come Play with the Halle and the summer showcase, the schools are expected to foot the bill for buses, coaches and buses and transport to projects outside. Otherwise it just becomes too expensive for any music service to cover those costs. So what is wide opportunities? Well, for us, this is some of the things. So it gives every child the opportunity to learn an instrument. That is really, really important for us, that they get this opportunity. It gives every school the opportunity to develop a rich and stimulating creative environment. So you have really got a chance here to create something absolutely amazing in these schools. And as said before, a fantastic recruitment tool for music services if correct progression routes are in place. So if you know where you can take these kids, if you know where you can take them, this is almost the holy grail, almost. But most of all, and I think why we do this really is because of this. That's why we do it, right? And that's what Wild Opportunities is all about. It's about the enjoyment of music and getting these children to really, really love music and get involved with it. And that's why we do it. And that's that. Right, that's all we've got.
So any questions?
Any
Yes,
questions?
yeah.
Yes.
Do you educate your tutors? Or?
Good question. Yes and no is the answer to that. Imogen is a qualified teacher, so when you leave university, you can then opt to take a pedagogicum on top of it that will make you a qualified teacher. You will then be able to teach classrooms in schools. It used to be the case. Now you don't actually have to be a qualified teacher.
You don't have to be, no.
Anyway,
no. But those skills are
well,
obviously
those
very
skills
useful.
are very useful
Yeah.
and excellent to have. And I'm not a qualified teacher, but I'm quite comfortable doing it, and I've learned it the hard way, so to speak. I've thrown in, there you go, here's a class, here's some instruments, get on with it and learn.
We have had some in-house training days about classroom management and things like that, you know, over the past few years.
Over years.
So we've had, you know, one-off events, one-off training days where we've focused on a specific area for the tutors, yeah. So those who are not trained classroom teachers can learn from the others, you know. Also, if you put a less experienced teacher with a more experienced teacher, obviously that's the way of training them as well. They sort of learn on the job as they go along. Yeah.
Good question.
What about the school teacher? It's not necessarily a music teacher. How do you involve this teacher, and how does it work out?
Theoretically, the kids are, what we do with the children, we try them out on the various instruments. So we try and give them an instrument that's suited for them, and we'll do the same thing with the teacher. So we'll find out what instrument the teacher is suited for, and then we'll say, there you go, here's a trumpet. That's what you're playing.
Put in to make discipline, because you are the one who is the leader of the whole thing, and the teacher is joining the group.
But their presence in the classroom helps with the discipline,
and they're a role model in a way.
Yeah, that's right. And they do often interject. They'll take somebody out, you know, if they're being a nuisance or whatever. So it's very helpful to have a class teacher there in terms of discipline, isn't it? Yeah.
Any other questions? No? Fantastic.
Oh,
no. Yes, go on then.
Does the schools that you cooperate with, they choose the instrument group to have in a class, or do you choose it?
Ooh, very good question again. Often we try and sell them a specific instrument because that's what we've got available. So we might have a set of flutes available. So we'll then contact the school and say, would you like to have? Said that, you also need to be aware of what you start in what areas. It's no good to start brass instruments in a school which got massive issues with social deprivation and they're not really going to take it home, stuff like that. And then perhaps it's better to give them some some other instruments that are easier to sort of initially get to, like percussion instruments and the likes of that. So you need to think about what instruments you put in. And it's not knocking percussionists on the head and saying it's rubbish. It's not at all. But percussion instruments are easier to access. Perhaps you could do a singing class, you know, so they don't have to take instruments home. So it's about thinking about what would work in that school as well.
Sometimes the schools say we haven't got much storage space, so we don't want any cellos or anything like that. You know, we want something small. Or one school that I go in requested flute and violin together, and it's the only one that we do like that. And it was because their class teacher already played the flute, and they already had violin tuition in the school and had it for a long time, so they thought they'd try the two together, and it actually works very well. Yeah. They've had that for a few years now.
So, yes.
Are you only teaching on public schools, or is private schools also involved?
We are only currently in public schools, in the primary school system. The English school system is changing somewhat. So there's some schools that are now called academies, which are technically not a public school, but really is anyway.
It's not a fee-paying school,
no,
so it's not
private.
No,
it's not fee-paying, so it's not a private school. But we do have one private school, don't we, that we know no longer in. We used to be teaching in a private school, but mainly it's public schools. Marianne. Yes?
I don't know if you actually said something about that, but is there connected some kind of sort of research or in Danish forskning to this project? Because it's a giant project and you might have something like that connected to it.
Not specifically for wide opportunities that I'm aware of. There's lots of research obviously gone into music in general, how it affects the primary schools and how it makes them better. A couple of years back when we went through the whole music system in England, went through, and this is kind of where the whole wide opportunities came from. But what happened was that the school system didn't really cater for music. The music service didn't really deliver what they were supposed to be doing. They were the specialists, but then you'll still have normal primary school teachers teaching music in primary school, so it was a silly combination. So hence the Wild Opportunities was kind of born to sort of bridge that gap and to get the music schools, the music services more involved in the primary schools, delivering what they can do, etc., etc. But there hasn't been any research that's sought into it, but we can see, and because of that, then when massive changes happened into the school system, research was asked for regarding music and how that affected the schools and how it affected the academics and the behavioural and all this kind of stuff. And there was made a massive list available to music services that we could plaster up everywhere to make people aware of what music does. So that's the only research really there is that we're aware of. Right.
Yes, a big hand for
Fantastic.
Imogen and Thomas.
Thank you.